my pleasure to introduce David Byars. I met David last summer at our annual conference in Columbus, where he was finished the final, got on a plane, and came out to join us halfway across the country to learn about how to get his group started. He's at the Anza College here in the Bay Area, and he has started his group, and it's been going really, really well. And one of the things that has really inspired me and made me very proud of David is that he's taken a very non-traditional approach to community service projects and group activities. A lot of thinking outside of the box going on here, and I'm very happy to hand over the floor to David so that he can tell you about what his group has been up to.
Okay, that's awkward. All right, so as Liz said, my name is David Byars. I am a staff member at the Anza College Library, and I'm also a student there. For the DAM Club, that's Doubters, Agnostics, Mythbusters, and Non-Theists, I am the official scapegoat. I figure if anybody has a complaint to make, they're going to blame it on me, so I might as well just open that up there. What I'm talking about today is crafting for charity. And the reason we chose textiles is it's much less messy than other options. I'm actually more of a woodworker and have been for a long time. But making people pick up wood shavings in a classroom is not cool. The textiles don't have any sort of messy issues like ceramics or metalworking or any of that. And what we decided to do after a couple of ideas were thrown around was Project Linus. And what these are here on the ends are strips of blanket. And when we get enough of these, we're going to sew them together and have a rather nice large blanket to send to Project Linus. What they do is they get blankets to children who have been through traumatic situations. This started after the Columbine shooting. This woman who had these blankets just left over from her knitting projects brought them all down to the center where they were going through a little bit of counseling and sort of a safe haven. And these teenagers were non-responsive at first. They just kind of sat in their chairs and didn't talk and didn't cry and just were shocked. And the secretary that these blankets were handed off to said, well, they're teenagers. They're not going to want blankets. It's not going to be a comfort to them. But she took them inside and put them in the room where these kids were sitting around in a circle. And when she came back 30 minutes later, I think, every single teenager had a blanket around them, and they were talking to each other, and they were crying, and they were processing what they had gone through. So it's one of those things where we don't see the value of comfort as much as it actually is there. Okay. The blankets need to be washable material, which means you go with plant-based or synthetic rather than wool or silk, which is not as easily washable. And you could knit them and crochet them like we do, or you could do quilting, sewing. There's a way to make blankets by tying together strips or weaving. Now, many people come up to me and say, well, why this? There's obvious drawbacks. And so I'm going to go through these obvious drawbacks. And one is, well, I'm not skilled at this. I don't know how to knit. I don't know how to crochet. Neither did we. This is Martin's strip. This was the first knitting he ever did. He started last September, which is when we started the club and we started this project. Martin is a natural. We taught him, and he just went right through this. He was the first one done with his strip. I am still working on mine. Now, part of that is because I've had to change over a couple times as I lose mine, because I do that. But Martin is amazing. And this brings us to the next point. Some people say, well, I'm not natural at this. I'm not skilled. I'm not either. This is my first bit of knitting. This was too tight to continue doing anything with. I could not get the needles through this. And so this became a coaster. This is the second bit of knitting that I started. This was in September when we started this project. And if you look down at the bottom, this is hugely raggedy and horrible, but it's still serviceable. This is still soft, this is still comfortable. This will still be of use as a blanket when we sew this into other strips. Okay, time. People say, well, this is terribly time consuming. But the thing is, you can do it while reading, watching TV, listening to lectures or presentations, or Roy will be happy to know this one, while Facebooking. Okay, I mentioned lectures and presentations, and people say that knitting in that circumstance will be distracting and will detract from your knowledge of the lecture. But when I'm taking notes, I miss what's going on now because I'm writing down what just happened. And I've talked to a lot of knitters and artists, and they say that if they're knitting or drawing, they're actually able to be more in the moment, because if they weren't doing anything, they'd be wandering off on a strange train of thoughts. And if they're taking notes, they miss things just like I do. And then the last one, I will admit to this, it's expense. It is more expensive to make a blanket than it is to buy a blanket. But Project Blindness wants handmade things because it is more of a comfort. Somebody put time and love into this. And it becomes less expensive over time, because I was halfway through my first quarter with this, and people started coming up to me and saying, I've heard what you're doing, I've got this huge yarn stash, would you like some? It's this very strange thing in knitting society, it's hoarding behavior. We get more yarn than we can ever use up, and then we go, why did I ever buy that? That's ugly as sin. I mean, it's soft, but oh, that's why I bought it, right. Okay, so the intended benefits of this. We're helping people, just like any other charity. We're comforting them. If somebody's been through a flood or a fire, we are replacing some of what they lost. We're also building our community, our club. Lots of people are reluctant to socialize because they think they're being lazy, they're not getting anything productive done. But people can stitch and bitch, as it's known, really easily. As soon as you know that you are doing something, you are doing good, you are being productive, that will free up people to socialize and form a community in your group. Helping each other learn and fix mistakes, that builds trust. The fact that you've created something like this, and Martin was the first one done, and he was showered with praise for this. I'm sure that the acknowledgement that he did something valuable and really damn spiffy, that was affirming. Okay, so you're also developing skills here. Your group is going to be more skilled because you did this project. And you can make presents or sell products with this sort of skill, and having skills that other people don't have equals bragging rights. Okay? And skills can build on skills. The initial project that I thought of was not Project Blindness. It was making preemie infant caps. But these are tiny little things that you can either sew in one or knit in one piece and then sew together on the sides, in which case you have to sew them together on the outside so that the stitches won't irritate, a very delicate baby's head. Or you can knit using double-pointed needles, and it's much more complicated. But now we're at a place where we can start learning that. building a better group. By doing this project, we are attracting more generous, more kind-hearted people. And we're attracting guys that do not mind doing something that is stereotypically a woman's thing because they are so protective of their masculinity. This will make it so that your group is more welcoming to females, okay? You're also improving the image of secularists and atheists. We are doing something good for the community. Now, if that wasn't on the list, we'd still do it. But you've got to acknowledge that this is a much different image than some of the YouTube clips that you've seen where people are just yelling, "You're all stupid, just trust science." And I've seen a couple of those. Somebody mentioned the, what was it? The angry atheist or something the other day? The unintended benefits. I just talked about improving our image, but it goes a little bit beyond that, because for people that demonize us, well, they might have an aunt or a grandma who knits, and I sit down at these inter-club council meetings with a placard in front of myself that says, "Damn." And everybody knows who I am. I am that atheist who had the temerity to start a club for atheists in a place where there are 6 Christian clubs, 1 Muslim club, and 1 Jewish club. And I'm sitting there knitting. And they're having this whole subconscious thing of, "That's something my grandma does," and "he's going to hell" at the same time. I am happy to produce cognitive dissonance in people that want to demonize us. Maybe when they get through that, they will realize that atheists are not all bad. We are not selfish. We are caring. We are giving of our time and our energy. And then beyond that, this isn't the only project that we've been thinking of doing. One of the other ones is helping our campus. One of the big things in California right now is the budget crisis. This is huge. One of the global issues right now is energy. And when you're looking at alternative energy, almost all of it needs industry to produce. The one exception that I can think of is wind turbines. With an alternator from a car, with a battery, with some wood, some metal gears, some wire, you can build a wind turbine. But I need help with this. And here's one of the things that I'm going to tell you. When it comes to these projects, you need to ask for help. You shouldn't be pushy about it. And what happens in my group with the knitting is we'll have 6 people up front, all in a line, chatting and knitting. We'll have a few people just drawing on the board, because that's what they want to do. We'll have some people just chatting. And the thing is, it's all as a group. Even those people that don't want to be doing this project right now, they're still included in the group. That's not true when you go to a soup kitchen and only some people are able to make it, or you do Habitat for Humanity and only some people are able to make it. That's not to say that those are bad things to do. I really think that it's a good thing to do just whatever you can manage. But there's something to this that makes it so that it's a community thing. And for the wind turbines, it means getting more of your community involved. I'm going to the engineering department because I'm not an engineer. I'm going to the Kirsch Center, that's the environmental sciences building, and getting their input. I'm talking to people that know about the dynamics of wind, because I know bunk about that. With that project, I'm trying to get my entire college involved, because we have a metal shop, we have a wood shop, we have an engineering department. We have everything on a college or university that we need to start lessening the college's energy overhead, to start reducing dependence on fossil fuels, all of these wonderful things. So there are lots of strange things that you can do in terms of charity and community improvement that people just haven't been doing, and I think it's because we get into ruts. But we don't have to. And at that, any questions? Yes?
Have you been having any, well, I guess I wouldn't say trouble, but do you happen to know the ratio in your particular group with women and with gay men as opposed to straight men? Because I'm kind of thinking about what this kind of project would be like, even at my school in, liberal New York City, and a liberal university, and I know most of the straight guys there probably wouldn't be willing to do it. So I'm curious how it works on your campus.
The way it works is that you ask people, would you like to have any of the extra yarn here? Anybody who doesn't know how to knit, would you like to learn? And if they don't, you don't worry about it. So I go through the business part of my meeting, and then afterwards it's, okay, does anybody else have any announcements? No? Okay. Let's get into the socializing, and whoever wants to, let's start crafting for charity. So everybody is still here, everybody is still in the community, everybody is still socializing. And the last meeting that we had, I didn't have almost any business, so I went through the 2 points and then said pretty much just that. And we had somebody put on some steampunk music. 3 people were drawing on the board like blimps and things, and people were knitting. And nobody was feeling left out. Everybody was still part of the community. And I think it helps that I'm trying also to get people involved in the wind turbine project, which is a little bit more stereotypically, oh, big and strong and whatever. Yes?
Actually, knitting is a wonderful project, and if you're at Harvard Med School at a lecture, you'll see dozens of kids knitting while they're listening to lectures. So I can't imagine sitting around and socially knitting together unless it will draw people who like knitting and who have nothing better to do. But it's sort of like a obsessive compulsive benefit to keep your hands busy while you're busy listening. And there's wonderful books about knitting, but do you think people who are not interested in knitting and have no ability to knit or interest in knitting will come to your meetings to socialize?
Yeah. As I said, there are people that don't knit, they still come to our meetings, they still hang out, and they still do the other events.
As secular students and eager to become more active in the secular movement, are the people who are attracted to you and your group at the Anza more interested in finding a way to become more active in the secular movement?
Do you know, I think that's a question that would be varying from person to person. Some of them are. They tend to jump at the leadership roles. They're the ones that are asking to be officers, and some of them aren't. They would never voluntarily go into that position, but I don't know that it's based on that project.
Because the name of the group is DAN, right?
Right.
Okay. So you're attracted to this.
May I just correct something?
Yes.
There's nothing fundamentally obsessively compulsive. There's no obsessive compulsiveness to someone who gets. The term.
No, but
You use the term very, very
okay.
improperly.
But
may I
it's
just
on the continuum.
No, it's not.
People who
No.
It's not.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
There are some people who knit who are obsessive compulsive, but they're not related. It's just overlap. One of the things that I think makes it so that it's not something that limits is that we also have lots and lots of other events. This is just an ongoing project that we can do while we are doing other things. And lots of people will ask me, well, can I take this and do this while I'm at home and watching TV, or can I take this to my class? And I'll say, yes, please do. And they'll come back and they'll have this much more done, and that's good. But I'm not saying that you want to base your entire club around one event, no matter what it is. We also do the MST3 cane of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We do the Fiction for Fiction thing. We do Alternate Religion Day, where we each pick a fictional or real religion, and we stand out in the quad within 15 feet of someone else doing this for a different fictional or real religion that we're doing this for. So it's just a matter of go for variety in your events. It very much helps. Did you have a question as well?
I did. So when you were looking for projects to do, were there any others that you thought were serious contenders as opposed to mimic?
Do you know, when it comes to the crafting, not so much just because of the limiting factors of mess. I was trying to think of something that we could do while we're going through meetings, while we're going through discussions, while we're socializing, and other things are just too messy to do in a room like this, where we're getting it for an hour or so, and then we get kicked out. Because if you do something for 15 minutes and then the rest of the time you're having to clean up before you have to leave, that's not doable. But when it comes to things other than crafting, yeah, there's lots. And I'm one of those who really doesn't care. I'll prefer a secular charity over a religious charity, but if I can't find something that fits a particular niche, yeah, I'll go do Habitat for Humanity. If the only group that asks for blood donations in an area is affiliated with a religion, I will give my blood to them. But the way it works out is you've got to figure out what's working for your students. If, like mine, they don't have much money, you can't just go, okay, well, they have this Haiti Relief Fund, and that's all we're going to do, because you guys don't have time, but you do have money. They don't have money. If your people do have more money, then you can do that, and if they have more time than the average college student, you can do more of the Habitat for Humanity types of things, but you need to slot out space for that. And you don't so much for this, because you do it while you're doing other things.
If I could just follow up with that, crafting for charity never occurred to me before. I
Okay.
talked to you yesterday. I assume I could just Google crafting for charity, but was there a specific place that you looked for craft projects?
Yes. My wife is the one that taught me how to knit, and she follows lots and lots of blogs on different sorts of crafts, and she has a subscription to Make Magazine, and yes, it is. And so I first went to the websites that she looks at and found suggestions for things to do that charities want. And they generally like things that are machine washable, but there are some things like, there's one, Afghans for Afghans. And that one, they want wool, because what they want is warmth. And in that particular society, machine washable doesn't really matter all that much. Let's see. But yeah, I basically went through and just went to well-known knitting and crafting blogs where people just tended to talk about their knitting and crafting in a humorous way, but you could do it any number of ways. Googling is probably the most direct way. Doing it my way would probably take a lot longer, and it probably did.
I'm happy to hear